G'day guys. I don't think I could pick a worse time to make a YouTube video, but I've got to make this one. Okay, bleeding the slave cylinder on these Civics. Now, because the inlet for the slave is here on this rotating device, right? And the bleeder's here, you will never bleed this slave cylinder. There's a reason Honda has done this. The only way to bleed this slave cylinder, this is how it sits in the car, okay? Screw in your brake pipe, put 2 bolts in so you can tighten this. Screw the brake pipe in. After you've clamped it and all that, unclamp it. The fluid does not run out from the slave out this cylinder. You don't even need to clamp it, but always clamp the flexible line, right? Put 2 bolts in loosely. Connect your brake pipe, hold it with a 17 and a flare spanner and close it. A spanner for the brake pipe, right? You can just use dodgy things like that. I've got a mental block at the moment. This is what we use, okay? Now, what you need to do, it's not a matter of tipping it over to get the air out. What you do, tighten this line, the inlet line, the feed line, then take these 2 bolts out. Now, this is where it sits in the clutch, like that, right? Like that. Always put grease there, by the way, but you're not there yet. Now, the best way to bleed it is to take this push rod out and do it with your finger, but do not do that, because if you're not seasoned, you're going to fly this thing out. This thing can fly out, okay? Now, take the 2 bolts out, that's tight. Have this completely out. Have that bleeder nut out, right? Now, take the 2 bolts out, rotate the cylinder around like this. It's now going to be on the pipe. Honda have designed it to do so. It's designed to turn. Now, operate the push rod with 1 finger. It is much easier without the push rod in, but don't do it without the push rod in. Operate it, release. And you'll see how slowly it recuperates back. You've got to be very patient. You'll feel the vacuum on your finger. Make sure there's brake fluid on your finger. And what you're doing is basically bench bleeding it on the car. You can't bench bleed it and fit it to the car, right? And it's not about tipping it that way for the air to come out, right? So, obviously, push it in, release. It'll be very, very, very slow to come out. Get a second person to keep this thing full. Sorry guys, I know that I've got cars coming in. Get someone to fill this up. It drops very quickly. You're not using a brake cylinder here, right? Now, it's over here, see? You're gonna rotate it around this way. I recommend taking that out, but I didn't. You're gonna push that push rod, and the rest is gonna be by feel. So if you've never done it before, I'm thinking you're gonna really struggle. So all the way, you'll see the bubbles come out right at the end like that. Then release and it will painfully come out like this, and you'll end up with an arm like this, which doesn't come up on camera. So it's not a pleasurable job, but all you gotta remember is Honda's done this. They've done this. When you're done bleeding it, be very careful to get all the air out. Get your second person or yourself to close this screw. Now, bear in mind, if you don't tighten this properly in the beginning, and that's why I said put 2 bolts in, this will come loose and suck air in, and you'll start like everyone does going, it's the slave, it's the clutch, it's an accumulation valve, which the car hasn't got. So just remember to get that air out and let it recuperate very, very slowly. You're gonna see it draw down, and you will bleed your cylinder. Now, once you lock it down, so you've got it coming out for the final bleed, the air bubbles are out, you can see the brake clutch fluid coming out, lock this down. And that's why I recommend leaving this in. It is much quicker to do it, believe it or not, with this out, because you can drag this out with your finger. This doesn't want to come out. And if you don't go all the way in, you'll never get the air out, okay? It can be very quick, or it can ruin your entire existence if you think that you fitted a slave and that the master clutch has collapsed on the firewall, right? That's what people always think. Hydraulics are a huge point of contention. I've seen the best mechanics get confused and argue and start stating their opinions, and they're always wrong. If the master clutch was working, even if you've got 200,000 Ks and you've not pumped the pedal to the end and ruined it to a place where it shouldn't have gone, it's not going to be a master clutch, but you're going to think it is. And I bet how many of you out there have done this job and changed the master clutch. So it gets bled in this position, okay? You can visually see this. You need to have this in a position, because the radiator fans are here, right? You need to have this in a position. That's why it's hard with the push rod in. And you need to have it in a position where you can actually go all the way in, right to the end, get those bubbles out, lock it down, make sure this doesn't come loose. So help you God if it does, because you'll be sucking air, starting to get air back up, right? Turn it around, put grease on this, put the bolts on, go over everything, top it up, close the lid. You're gonna spill fluid, get the fluid off the belts, and your job is done. I hope this really helps someone, especially someone who knows what they're doing. If you've never bled hydraulics, I don't think you're gonna be able to do this unless you've got a good feel for it. Hope this really helps someone, guys. Okay, I've got a jet, and maybe I'll make a video. We're heading to the snow tomorrow, and maybe I'll make a video there with the Subaru, entertain you guys. All right, guys, hope you have a great day. Bye.